Hi, Mrs. Hughes here. I am continuing our reading of Ghost by Jason Reynolds. I will be on page 84, starting at the top. Size, she asked. I don't really know. I think I'm an 8, maybe 8.5. The truth is, I had no idea what size I wore. I couldn't remember. When me and Ma went to get my last pair, the ones I was wearing, the ones that now had their heads chopped off, the reason we went in the first place was because the sneakers I had were too small. I think I was a 7 then, and we had to bump up to an 8, but I just couldn't remember. Tia eyeballed my feet, and even though I knew she was trying to guess my shoe size, I couldn't help but think she was looking at my chewed up dogs like, what the? I was hearing Shamika's booming laugh ringing in my ears again when Tia finally chirped, I'll bring a 9 too. I took a seat on one of the benches and looked around at the boxing gloves and soccer balls and every other kind of sports equipment. There was a man working in the store, too. He was standing next to a rack of jump ropes, tossing a basketball back and forth from hand to hand, and occasionally spinning it on one finger, but only for like half a second. He probably wasn't no athlete either. A few moments later, Tia came back out with 2 boxes. Okay, she said, setting the boxes down on the floor in front of me. I got an 8 and a 9, but no 8.5. She popped the top of the first box. Let's start with the 9. She pulled the silver shoes from the box and set them down in front of me. I untied my frayed shoestrings, I had to cut them too, and slipped my sneakers off, tucking them under the bench. 2 more people walked into the store. Tia and the other guy greeted them. Then Tia encouraged me to put the shoes on. Walk around, jump up and down, or whatever. Take your time and get a feel for them. I put the shoes on. The 9s fit perfectly. After I laced them tight, I stood up and bounced up and down a few times like Tia suggested. They felt amazing, almost like I didn't have any shoes on at all. I stepped in front of the mirror to check myself out. Man, it looked like I was wearing spaceships on my feet or silver bullets. How are they? Tia came back over to check on me. They're good, I said, still staring at my feet in the mirror. I felt like they had some kind of power in them, and that power was pumping into me. The kind of power that shut down all laughter. I repeated now, looking at her. They're good. Perfect. Tia nodded and went to talk to one of the other customers. And that's when I made my move. At first, I wasn't going to do it. I mean, when I went into the store, it was a thought, but only a thought. Not even like a real thought either, because I knew that I could just ask my mother to get them for me. And she would, because she felt like this track thing was going to keep me out of trouble. But when I saw how much they cost, I just couldn't ask her for them. I just couldn't. But these were shut-up shoes. Nobody would have nothing to say about me with these on my feet. And that's when the thought became real. I took the shoes off, and when Tia moved to the other side of the store to show the baseball gloves to one of the people who had come in, and the other guy who worked there had run in the back to grab something for the other customer, I slipped the silver bullets in my backpack. I put the top back on the box and put the empty shoebox under the other one, the 8s. Then I put my sneakers back on as fast as I could. I slung my bag on my shoulder and headed for the door. Then as I got there, Tia called out, "No good?" I was stunned, but shook it off and played it cool. They're amazing. I love them, I said, trying not to look her in the face. Maybe I'll come back for them later. I pushed the door open. As soon as I stepped through the doorway, I took off. I pounded down the street, waiting to hear someone yell, "Hey, kid," or "Thief, somebody stop that kid," like they do on TV. But no one did. At least I didn't hear none of that. The streets can be noisy with cars and people bumbling around, not to mention when you're running scared like I was. The only sound you really hear is the sound of your own heart banging like a scary soundtrack to the chase. I turned the corner, still looking over my shoulder for the police, but I stopped running, because if a cop saw a random kid running down the street in the middle of a school day, might be a sign that the kid's up to no good. And I was that kid. So I tried to throw off any potential cops by walking. But that felt cocky. So I did a weird, "Don't mind me, I'm just doing my old lady power walk" thing. I knew it was only a matter of time before the police came out of nowhere, charging at me, ready to take me to jail, all because I wanted some dope shoes to be a better runner, to be a better basketball player. be better so nobody could say anything. The cops never came. I didn't stop, though, too paranoid. I almost jumped into a trash can when a police car with his sirens on zipped past me. But he wasn't looking for me. Nope. He was looking for a real criminal. And I wasn't a real criminal, one with a real rap sheet. Of course, after about 5 or 6 minutes of not quite running, not quite walking, I had to stop and figure out exactly where I was going. Didn't want to head home. I mean, I could have. It wouldn't have been safe, but I just didn't want to go there. When I'm there by myself for too long, the house becomes some kind of time machine, teleporting me back 3 or 4 years, listening to my mom and dad fight and scream every night, taking me back to all the bad stuff. So that was out. There was only one other place I thought was safe enough to go, Mr. Charles' store. When I got there, Mr. Charles was talking to a delivery man. He signed a piece of paper, one of those 3-in-1 papers, and a guy in dusty blue overalls ripped the pink one from the bottom and gave it to Mr. Charles. Then the guy grabbed his metal carrier thing on wheels and rolled out. "Castle?" Mr. Charles said in his loud voice. He folded the pink piece of paper in half and tucked it somewhere behind the counter. He turned the TV down, then checked his watch, clearly confused about why I wasn't in school. But instead of just asking, he asked the usual. "Let me guess, sunflower seeds?" He snatched a bag off the wall. I wasn't even really thinking about sunflower seeds, but I did skip lunch, and since he brought it up, "Let me guess, $1?" I replied as usual, digging into my pocket for $1. "Nope. $10, Mr. Charles said, pulling the seeds back off the counter. $10? I snipped. "What do you mean $10? "I mean, sunflower seeds cost you $10 from now on until you tell me why you're not in school." Mr. Charles held his hand out, waiting for me to put the $10 I didn't have in it. Then he shrugged and put the sunflower seeds back up on the hook. "Mr. Charles," I moaned, "are you serious?" "Serious as a heart attack," he said, so predictably that I could have said it for him. I looked at him for a second, trying to give him my best puppy dog face, even though I wasn't sure I even had one. "Won't work," he said. I leaned against the glass of the big fridge. Mr. Charles kept the deli meats in. "Okay," I huffed. I left after social studies because kids were laughing at me. Mr. Charles came from behind the counter, propped himself up against the ice chest. "Come again?" I said I left after social studies. Kids were laughing at me, this time louder. "Laughing at what?" I didn't say nothing. I just hiked up my pants and let my shoes do the talking. Mr. Charles looked down at my mangled kicks and dropped his mouth open. "What'd you do?" he asked, stepping back to get a better view. "I cut them," I said flat out, letting my pants drop back down. "I can see that, but why?" I wanted to rip open my backpack and say, "To make them more like these," but I didn't, because then Mr. Charles would have wanted to know where I got those dope kicks from and all that. And the next thing you know, he would have jacked the price of the sunflower seeds up to $100. I'm on a track team now, and they all got good shoes, low tops, and you can run better in low tops. "So you hacked half your sneakers off?" "Pretty much," I said cool. "And today at school, when some of the kids noticed, they laughed. So I left. Please don't tell my mom." I'd been saying that a lot lately. Mr. Charles sighed, then went back behind the counter. He took the bag of seeds back off the hook and set them in front of me. "Okay, this one's on me," he said. But when I reached for them, Mr. Charles wouldn't take his hand off the bag. "But no more running out of school, especially just because people are laughing at you. People are always going to be laughing at you, Castle. Trust me." "You've been laughed at?" I asked. I was willing to bet that he never got made fun of. I mean, there was the whole "you look like a white James Brown" thing, but I wasn't sure if anyone else noticed that or if it was just me. And then there was the almost deaf thing, but I figured that was just because he was old. No big deal. Other than that, what could anyone tease Mr. Charles about? "Ha!" he hooted. "Of course I have. I get laughed at all the time, son. Listen, I come from a family of Einsteins. My brother's a doctor. My sister's a big-time college professor at one of those smarty universities. Both my parents were lawyers. And me, I sell you sunflower seeds." "What's wrong with that?" I asked. "Shoot, having your own store seemed like a sweet deal. You ain't never got to pay for no groceries." And that is where I end at the bottom of page 91. So tune in tomorrow and you will hear another member of Team 7A continue the story Ghost by Jason Reynolds. Thank you.